Good morning, everyone. Could we get everybody to take their seats? Lunch will be served very soon, so if you could save the chat for after and sit down because we are in a very tight time frame, folks.
All right. Please be seated. Good afternoon. Can you hear me at the back? Just put your hands up if you can. All right, thank you very much. My name is Gerald Graham, and I am pleased to be, thank you very much, I'm not running, not that I know of yet. I'm pleased that I was asked back again. I was here in 2011 when we had 2 leaders show up for the debate, and we've got 2 here again today. I'd like to welcome all of you. It's a sellout, so thank you very much for showing your support for democracy in Ontario. And I'd like to welcome people across the province and around the world watching online today. And thank you for the broadcasters carrying the signal. The Northern Leaders Debate is hosted by a number of groups: the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, the Northwestern Ontario Associated Chambers of Commerce, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Northeastern Ontario Chambers of Commerce, and the Anishinaabe Nation. The event is sponsored by the Northern Policy Institute and generously supported by netnewsledger.com and the Valhalla Inn. We're happy to have 2 provincial leaders in attendance today. On my right, leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, Kathleen Wynne. And I guess somewhat appropriately on my left, Andrea Horwath, leader of the Ontario New Democratic Party. Here's the format that has been agreed upon by both parties. The forum will open and close with 2-minute statements by each leader, which we'll get to in just a minute. The leaders will then be asked questions by our esteemed panelists. I'm going to ask each one to stand, actually, while I introduce them so you can see them down front. Kenora Mayor Dave Canfield, President of the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association. Nathan Lawrence, President of the Northwestern Ontario Associated Chambers of Commerce. Kapuskasing Mayor Al Spacek, President of the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities. Nick Stewart, Northeastern Ontario Chambers of Commerce. And Deputy Chief Les Ludith from the Anishinaabe Nation. Each leader will have 90 seconds, that's a minute and a half, to respond to each question. Time is closely monitored by our timekeeper, Josh. Thank you, Josh. The yellow card, Josh, just hold the yellow card up so we can see it. It says right on there, you have 20 seconds to wrap up. You don't want to see the red card for too long. Josh, you want to hold that one up? That means that time has run out and that the microphone will be shut off within seconds. I'll try and be as well, maybe liberal is not the right word to use. I'll try and be as democratic as I can in how long the leaders can go over. Now, your rules, as the audience, are quite simple as well. They'll be strictly enforced, I've been told. Apparently, there are a number of police officers here. No yelling, heckling, or unruly behavior during the forum. Clapping is allowed, by the way, but we're going to ask you to hold your applause until after both leaders have had a chance to answer the questions. Should I run over those again? Okay. The order of the opening and closing statements has been drawn by the 2 parties. And Ms. Wynne is going to open. You have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Oh, and there's another rule. We have to push. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, bonjour, Ani. It is wonderful to be back in Thunder Bay, and it's wonderful to be here with you on the traditional territory of the Fort William First Nation. J'aimerais aussi saluer la communauté francophone qui habite le Nord. I'd like to thank NOMA for organizing this opportunity for us to talk about our vision for this province from a northern perspective. Comme Canadiens, on s'identifie comme un peuple nordique, mais souvent les gens ressentent que le gouvernement ne comprend pas bien le Nord. I believe that as Canadians and as Ontarians, we identify ourselves as a northern people. And yet I often hear that people feel that the government doesn't get the northern perspective. And that's exactly why, as a minister, I intentionally came to the North. I made it my business in all of the portfolios that I held to make sure that I understood the northern perspective. When I was Minister of Education, for example, I traveled to Sioux Narrows to a school that had 6 students in it. And once I had seen that school firsthand, it was much clearer to me why that school needed to stay open. Today, we're talking about our plan to build Ontario up. We're going to talk about the Ring of Fire, I'm sure, ONTC, the need for great infrastructure, excellent health care, and excellent education. And all of that is very important to you as Northerners. We also understand how important you are to the rest of the province. The North is going to be an economic driver again. It's going to be an economic driver again because of those resources. We need that chromite, but we also need your talent, your ingenuity, and your determined spirit. I want you to know that our plan is rooted in what you have said to us and in my own experience here. I've listened, and we have learned from you. Thank you very much. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Ms. Horwath.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased that Ms. Wynne has decided to join us today. Mr. Hudak's absence sums up, I think, his opinion of Northerners and how he feels about them. Hardworking people, that's what Northerners are. You are hardworking, honest people, and you deserve a hardworking, honest government. And that starts by cleaning up corruption. We have a plan that we launched this morning that focuses on your priorities. But before we get to that, we have to clean up the corruption at Queen's Park. You know, the day that the OPP showed up and took those hard drives out of Queen's Park was the day that I heard the people of Ontario say that they had had enough. They had had enough of the Liberal betrayals, enough of their lies, enough of the wasted billions and billions of dollars for their own gain. And Ms. Wynne was at the center of it. She was a senior cabinet minister. She was a campaign co-chair. She endorsed it all. So the question is, who will listen to you? The question is, who will get results for you? Liberals make promise after promise after promise. They got promises every year. For 10 years, you got promises, hesitations, delays. But there was no hesitation or delay when it came to throwing your hard-earned tax dollars at their political priorities and left you twisting in the wind. An NDP government will work hard on your priorities. This government has shown that they are corrupt and that they don't deserve your vote. Our plan is going to make sure that resources in the North create jobs in the North, that we reward people who invest and hire in the North, and that we make your life affordable by getting the HST off of your bills. That's a plan that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Ms. Horwath. We'll start with the questions now. The first question will be posed by Kenora Mayor Dave Canfield to Ms. Wynne.
Good afternoon, leaders, and thank you for being here. To open this up, the future of Ontario is in Northern Ontario. Question number 1. The Common Voice Northwest Energy Task Force has identified the electrical energy needs of Northwest, including the ongoing role of the Atikokan and Thunder Bay Thermal Generating Station and the urgent transmission needs of the region, particularly as it relates to the new mining development and forestry opportunities. Please outline your party's specific plan for energy supply in the Great Northwest.
Thanks very much, Mayor Canfield. And I just want to say that the investments that we have made in our electricity system, remembering that when we came into office in 2003, the electricity system was in a shambles in Ontario. There needed to be investments, including more than 10,000 kilometers of transmission line, including the east-west tie, including investment in the lower Matagami. We have made those investments. We will continue to work to make sure that there's connectivity across the province. I had the opportunity to meet with Mayor Roy Hoffman in Pickle Lake last summer, and we talked about the needs of Pickle Lake and the need for more capacity there. That is part of our long-term energy plan. The conversion of the Thunder Bay and Atikokan plants to biomass, that's part of our plan. That work is ongoing right now. So we are committed to making sure that we continue to make the investments, including, and I would just say this is part of the energy question in the north, making sure that electricity is affordable. So the Northern Industrial Electricity Rate Program is extremely important to make sure that energy is affordable for those energy concentrated industries, and making sure that we have programs in place that give people a reduction who need it, for low-income folks, for people who are struggling to pay their bills. We have done that work. We will continue to work and make sure that there is an energy supply for the north, particularly the northwest.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Response from Ms. Horwath.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Northerners are a bit pessimistic about the promises Liberals make about their energy supply, considering that they promised twice to convert the coal plant to gas-fired plant, and twice they broke that promise. And now we have the very same committee, Mayor Canfield, that you talked about, that is warning the Liberals that there isn't enough biomass being stockpiled to meet the energy needs next winter, let alone the energy needs that are going to be necessary to ensure that the mining companies that are already around northwestern Ontario, and I talk to the mayor of Red Lake often about this, Mayor Phil, I'm sure he's here somewhere, but the fact of the matter is we need to make sure that in the short term that biomass is enough to meet the needs of northwestern Ontario. Apparently, at this point, the only thing the Liberals are committing to is enough biomass to get you through till the middle ways through January of next year. That's not good enough. But in the longer term, we need to take a look at that generating station, at that generation capacity, and the possibility of actually turning it into a gas-fired plant. The Liberals have failed when it comes to our electricity system. Our hydro costs twice as what they pay in Manitoba, just across the border, and what they pay in Quebec. And their plan is a status quo plan that hasn't made sense for the last couple of years and isn't going to make sense in the future. New Democrats are going to clean up the mess in the electricity system so it's reliable for everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. The next question is going to be posed by Nathan Lawrence to Ms. Horwath.
Ms. Horwath, the Ring of Fire is a multi-generational economic opportunity for the province that will generate $25 billion in economic activity and sustain 5,500 jobs per year over a 32-year period. To unlock this potential, the provincial and federal governments need to commit to funding all-season transportation infrastructure in the Ring of Fire. What are the specific steps that your party will take to plan and construct the necessary transportation, energy, and telecommunications infrastructure? What levels of investment will you commit to? What time frame? And what role will the First Nations and municipalities have in planning and ownership?
Thank you very much for the very important question. Look, it is obvious that the Ring of Fire is a great opportunity for Northern Ontario. It's an opportunity that's sat waiting to be realized, though, while the Liberals have done nothing over the last number of years. We just saw, of course, not only Cliffs walking away a little while back, but the final nail in the coffin when they sold their exploration camp just the other day. That is because there is no confidence in the Liberals to get it right in the Ring of Fire. The investment has to come right away. The discussions around opening up the corridor, deciding which corridor we're going to utilize and which mode of transportation we're going to utilize needs to happen quickly. New Democrats are committed not only to the $1 billion, but if it takes more than $1 billion, then we're committed to that as well, because the opportunity is magnificent for Northern Ontario communities and for First Nations. We're also going to, however, make sure that there is a revenue sharing plan in place that's negotiated with First Nations communities and with Northern communities, so that the resources that we're pulling out of the ground in the Ring of Fire is actually benefiting your communities. We think that that's an extremely important principle. The bottom line is 5,500 jobs have been left on the table year after year as the Liberals have not delivered on the Ring of Fire.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Ms. Wynne, your response?
Well, let me just say that the Ring of Fire is a national project that is at least as important as the oil sands in Alberta. And so the actions that we have taken to make sure that we have a framework agreement in place with the Matawa First Nations that actually provides a framework for the resource revenue sharing that needs to happen and the protection for environmental rights. That's a historic agreement that has been signed off on already. We have committed $1 billion with or without the Harper government. We do need a federal partner to develop the Ring of Fire in the same way that the federal government has worked in the oil sands. But we're going to move ahead with or without, and we've committed $1 billion to make sure that that infrastructure gets built. I've committed to, within 60 days, if we're privileged to be re-elected, to bring together that development corporation and to actually get started on that work. And we have seen, you know, I'm going to turn around what Ms. Horwath said about the cliff situation, where we see the confidence in the Ring of Fire and in the work that we've done because NORAD is interested in those assets. So there has been a lot of movement. It is extremely important to the north that the Ring of Fire be developed. The work that we have done in the last few years is preparing the table to make sure that that work happens. It would be great to have a federal partner, but we're going ahead with or without them.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Our next question will be posed by Kapuskasing Mayor Alice Bacek to Ms. Wynne.
It has been recognized that municipalities serviced by the Ontario Provincial Police have been paying inequitable costs of policing services. As a result, a new billing model was introduced in an attempt to even out the extreme highs and lows created by the current model. However, there's too much uncertainty in the proposed formula, which concerns many small and rural municipalities across the north. Small and rural municipalities are responsible for the same legislative and reporting requirements as their larger counterparts, but do not have the resources to deal with the increasing demands mandated by the province. Would your party agree to take back the responsibility for policing small municipalities with a population of 5,000 or less?
Thanks for the question, Mayor Spacek. And I just want to say as a starting point that it has been a tenet of certainly my time in provincial politics that the relationship between the provincial government and municipalities is one that is fundamental to the success of the province. And so the work that we have done together, whether it's on committees of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario or whether it's in the Memorandum of Understanding table, which meets monthly with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, allows an ongoing dialogue. The OPP billing cost is one of those discussions. It's one of those things that is very important. As you know, there is huge disparity across the province. There are some municipalities where there is zero cost per person in terms of those police services, and in other it's several $100s per person. So it has to be evened out. We appreciate the work that the leadership of the municipalities has done with us. I have expressed concern with my colleagues. The final formula has not been decided upon. The work is still ongoing. But I am concerned that there is going to be, at the end of the day, some capacity that small municipalities are not going to be able to bear. And so if we can introduce this idea into that mix, into that discussion, I think that would be a very good thing, because I do think there will need to be some mitigation, but we do have to even out the costs.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Ms. Horwath, your response.
I want to say First and foremost, how much I appreciate the work that you do at the municipal level to make your communities strong and vibrant and safe. Having been a municipal councillor myself as well, I know what it takes, and it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of attention to details at a time when it's a struggle, frankly, to make sure that you're able to meet those needs with budgets that are often rather dwindling because of reductions or losses in your municipal tax base for various reasons, which we might get into a little later on. But nonetheless, it is absolutely the case that we will look at this proposal and take it very, very seriously if we're privileged enough to form a government. We know that the cutbacks to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund have also negatively affected the capacity of municipalities to be able to absorb these extra costs in cases where their costs are increasing with these new discussions. And so we're definitely prepared to have a hard look, particularly at the small municipalities of under 5,000, but also address some of the concerns that you've raised with me about the lack of transparency in the billing process, so that you have a better ability to determine exactly what it is you're paying for and how you can work with the OPP to make sure that you're getting the service you need for your community. I look forward to the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. The next question will be posed by Nick Stewart to Ms. Horwath.
This was touched on earlier, but one of the key challenges to attracting industry to the north is the high cost of electricity, which drastically and negatively impacts our ability to be competitive. Worse yet, costs are projected to rise in the months and years to come, amplifying the major disadvantage we have to neighboring jurisdictions, where rates are lower and sometimes significantly. This disparity has a very real impact on our communities. For example, the high cost of power has contributed to the closure of Timmins' Kidd Metallurgical site in 2010, putting more than 600 people out of work. What steps would your party take to permanently reduce the cost of electricity?
Thanks, Nick, for the question. Look, I hear this everywhere I go in Ontario, but it hurts a little bit more here in the north when you can, particularly the northwest, when you can generate power at such a reasonable rate with hydroelectric power. And when you see, literally across the border in Manitoba, the price of hydroelectricity is half of what you're paying here in the north and what we're paying in Ontario. And of course, on the other side, Quebec, same deal. They have electricity rates that are half or less than what Ontario charges. And I don't think it's any surprise that those two provinces have maintained an electricity system that's in the interest of the public. The Conservatives deregulated and started selling off our electricity system. The Liberals continued to do that under their reign. And what we have now are power prices that make us uncompetitive in terms of our economy. New Democrats think that that was the wrong thing to do, and we think that the Liberals have been wrong-headed in not addressing it. They've continued to bring more private power deals into the grid. In fact, that's what the Mississauga and Oakville gas plants were all about. We're going to take the four agencies, we're going to collapse them. We're going to get rid of a layer of bureaucracy at the top. We're going to cap the CEO salaries. We're going to have the Auditor General look at all of those private power deals that Liberals and Conservatives have made, and we're going to start directing our marketing ourselves so that we can get a better price for the power that we're selling to light up the Manhattan skyline. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Response from Ms. Wynne.
Thank you very much. So as I said earlier, the reliability of our energy system was very much in question in 2003. There had been years of neglect. There had not been the necessary investments made in our system. We have made those investments, and I am proud of the work that we have done to make this system make it reliable and make it accessible and make it predictable and stable for industry and for residents alike. But there is a cost associated with that, and we have recognized that. So we are taking costs out of the system. We renegotiated the Samsung deal, which will take $2 billion out of the system. We have made a determination, and I don't know what the NDP's position on this is, but we have made a determination not to go ahead with building new nuclear, which would cost $15.5 billion Tim Hudak says he will go ahead with that, even though we know that that power is not needed at this time. So we have done those things. Those will take costs out of the system, and we have put in place the supports that we know businesses and residents need. So the NIRP program, the Northern Industrial Program, that allows businesses to have a lower rate. We have put in place the programs that help residents to deal with their energy costs. But make no mistake, folks, we need to continue to make investments. If everyone in the North is going to be connected and is going to have the power that they need, we're going to have to continue to make those investments in the electricity system around the province, and we will do that.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Next question will be posed by Grand Chief Les Looted to Ms. Lynn.
Hi, good afternoon, leaders. This question is on the subject of electricity to remote First Nation communities. Ms. Wynne, if you are re-elected Premier of Ontario, will your government direct the OPA to make firm and immediate plans to connect the 21 Nan First Nations as identified in the OPA's Remote Community Connection Plan, referenced in Chapter 4 of Ontario's Long-Term Energy Plan? And if so, what will be the timeline to begin to implement the OPA's plan? If the federal government is committed to cost-sharing the connection for these First Nations, such as the CCEG transmission line project, which is sponsored by Nan First Nations.
Well, Deputy, thank you very much, Deputy Grand Chief, for the question. And I think that you have you've pointed to the reality that this connection is in our long-term energy plan. We are committed to doing this. But it's also the case that it's another example where we need a federal partner. And so the condition that you put on that question, that if the federal government is willing to cost share, is a very important one, because it is something that needs to happen. And if they are willing to cost share that, we would like to move as quickly as possible, because I think it's very important that those communities be connected. It's important for the quality of life of the people in the First Nations, but it's also important to the economic viability of the communities as well. So it's something that actually I believe my officials have raised with the Prime Minister's office, with the federal government. It's something that needs to happen. It's in our long-term energy plan, and we will move on it. We need that partnership.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Ms. Horwath, response.
Thanks very much, Grand Chief, Deputy Grand Chief. I really appreciate the question. Look, it's very distressing to see what continues to be conditions in First Nations communities that can be addressed by the access to electricity in a more reliable way, in a way that opens up opportunity for the communities. And so we are very, very interested in moving forward, and not just in a passive way, and making sure that we're with you, amplifying your voice when it comes to discussions with the federal government in terms of the requirement to bring them to the table to help bring these projects online, and to make sure that the communities benefit from the power, because it is absolutely the case that there is opportunity and that there can be a great difference made by in terms of the quality of life and the standard of life of First Nations communities when they get access to power. And so New Democrats will definitely commit to doing everything we can to work with you to ensure that that happens in all of the communities.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. The next question will be the second question for Kenora Mayor David Canfield to Ms. Horwath.
Thank you, leaders. For a variety of reasons, including the decline in the forest industry, related changes by MPAC on how the remaining forest operations are assessed, reductions to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund contribution to the individual communities, and an overall decline in the industrial assessment base of the majority of northern communities, northern towns are in financial jeopardy. What steps will your party take should you form the next government to provide northern municipalities with a solid, sustainable, equitable, and affordable revenue stream that does not place undue burden on local property taxpayers who in this part of the country are paying the highest property taxes in this country?
Thank you very much for the question. You know, I've been to towns where they've told me they're not going to have a mayor likely running in the municipal elections coming up because nobody wants to be the mayor when the town goes bankrupt because of the MPAC system. That is a pretty horrifying thing in this province when municipalities don't have municipal leaders willing to step up because the province has so disadvantaged them when it comes to the MPAC system. So New Democrats, if we form a government, will immediately take on this issue with MPAC. And it's northern communities and other communities around the province as well. When those industrial users all of a sudden are, those industrial ratepayers rather, are all of a sudden given huge reductions in their assessment, and those reductions literally cut a municipality's budget in half or worse. That is not acceptable. I know that the government has, as a result, had to bail out some communities to prevent them from going bankrupt. That's a position that no municipality, no town should be put in whatsoever. So we're going to make sure that that MPAC system is there for communities and for municipalities. We're also going to make sure, though, that we're providing new revenue streams with revenue sharing agreements from new mining that comes into this province, because you should be getting some of the revenues from the mining that's happening in your municipalities and regions.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Response from Ms. Wynne.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Canfield. So I think the single most important thing that we can do in terms of government facilitating and partnering with the North is to make sure that we take advantage of, with you, every opportunity to grow and expand your economy. So making sure that we make the right investments in the talent and the skills of the young people and the communities in the North, making sure that we make the right investments in infrastructure and make sure that we invest in the roads and the bridges and all of the transportation infrastructure that you need in your communities to make sure that businesses will come and that they will thrive. And then creating a business climate that is strong enough and competitive enough to bring businesses. So that means partnering with communities, partnering with businesses to repurpose plants when they're in a transition. So I remember meeting with Mayor King of Terrace Bay, and before the Birla plant was, the Birla company was involved in repurposing the plant in Terrace Bay. But it was that kind of partnership that was facilitated in part, not completely, but in part by Minister Gravel and our government working community and business on the three ways, making sure that those opportunities are there. The Northern Ontario Heritage Fund is a very important job creator and a stream of revenue to the North. So those are the things that we will continue. That's what our plan is.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Our next question comes from Nathan Lawrence, again to Ms. Wynne.
Ms. Wynne, Ontario's deficit and debt are projected to increase to $12.5 billion and $295.8 billion respectively in 2014-2015. Our large debt is eroding Ontario's capacity to deliver services. What specific steps will you take to eliminate the deficit and pay down the debt while protecting the core services that Ontarians value?
So let me just say that every single year since the economic downturn, our budget was in balance, and then there was a severe hit to the Ontario economy, and nowhere was it felt more than in the North. And so we have been dealing with that deficit that was created because of that economic downturn. We're dealing with an added situation at this particular moment because our revenues are not what we had expected, and the federal government has made a decision to treat Ontario differently than every other province and not to flow transfer payments in the same way that they do to other provinces. So we're dealing with a situation that requires at this moment that we make investments to make sure that we have the steady economic growth that we need. I talked just just a moment ago about our plan of investment in the talent and skills of people, the infrastructure, and a competitive business climate. Well, that's what we have to do across the province, in the north, but across the province. And if we do that, in these next couple of years, we make those investments, we will see the kind of growth. Already, we have 95,000 jobs created last year alone, new jobs created last year alone. That's the kind of investment that's needed right now if we are going to be able to recover. Cutting 100,000 jobs from the economy, which is what Tim Hudak wants to do, will push us back, will actually slow our recovery and slow our ability to deal with our deficit.
Ms. Wynne, thank you very much. Response from Ms. Horwath.
I'd like to start by acknowledging that the recession hit the north far before it hit the rest of Ontario. We were already dealing with some serious job loss and serious loss in the forestry sector, particularly well before the rest of Ontario hit the recession. Having said that, I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't spend $1.1 billion of your dollars canceling gas plants and putting it on the debt for the rest of us to have to deal with. Look, it's about respecting your tax dollars. That's what it's about. It's about making sure that we're watching every penny, like we do around the kitchen table when we're counting up our bills at the end of the month. That's what New Democrats are going to do. We're going to take the waste that we've seen with the Liberals and get rid of it. We're going to collapse some agencies, as I've already talked about in hydro, but there are others as well. We're going to cap the CEO salaries in this province in the public sector for a change. We're going to bring savings through making sure that we're doing bulk purchases in a lot of different areas. There is a lot of waste in our system at the top. We're going to make sure we get rid of that and invest it in frontline services while getting rid of the deficit. I believe in balanced budgets. We will have a balanced budget by 2017-18. That is the history of my political party, frankly, with Tommy Douglas. He used to say that he'd be rather take the interest that the banks are getting on debt and use it to actually provide services instead of giving it to the banks. That's what I believe as well. And New Democrats will deliver results when it comes to savings with our Financial Accountability Office and making sure we have a Minister for Savings and Accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Next question comes from Kapuskasing Mayor Al Spasik to Ms. Horwath.
Thank you. Ms. Horwath, Northern Ontario is consistently met with policy and legislation that is imposed upon us, often without consultation or consideration for the impacts that it will have on our region. There have been several instances that have demonstrated this, such as the Far North Act and the Endangered Species Act. There is also the ongoing concern that introduced policy and legislation is heavily influenced by environmental groups. Do you believe that the future of Ontario is in Northern Ontario, and what is your position to ensure that when developing policy and legislation that affects the North, local government and stakeholders are consulted?
Well, I'm glad for the question, Al, because we've watched as Northerners continue to be frustrated by a lack of voice when decision-making is happening in Toronto, and that's something that is absolutely unacceptable. You may know that New Democrats have proposed a committee at Queen's Park that would be made up of all MPPs, so regardless of political stripe, to look at exactly this issue and make sure that as legislation comes forward, and not just legislation specific to the North, but other legislation as well, to see how it will impact on the North, because we believe that Northern voices are the most important piece of ensuring that we get it right for Northern Ontario. But we also know that there's the legislation that exists that has been in some ways ignored or duplicated or creates great confusion when it's not observed. For example, the Crown Forest Sustainability Act. If there are regulations or things that are going to be changing, we need to make sure that they're in line with that legislation so that we don't get problems when it comes to standards or regulations that might not be beneficial. We are committed to listening to what you have to say, to hearing what you have to say, and to acting on your interests, because you're the experts, you're the people that know best when it comes to Northern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Response from Ms. Lynn.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question, Mayor Spacek. Well, we have already put in place a cabinet committee, a Northern Cabinet Committee, so that every piece of legislation that goes through our government goes through that filter, and we look at it in terms of the impacts on the North. But the the thing that I want to say is that I have made it my business in every ministry that I have had the privilege of leading to make sure that I understand the issues from the northern perspective. And so when I came into this office and I realized that the ONTC decision that had been made, and I knew that it had been made without the voices of the North being heard adequately, we changed that process. We reversed that decision. We made sure that an advisory committee, and Mayor Spacek, you served on that committee. We changed the process, and the divestiture of the ONTC was not the only option as we went into that process. So we have changed the way we interact with decisions that are made in the North, at Queen's Park, because there has to be more interaction between those. And I think it is about the structures we put in place, but it's also about an attitude. It's also about what is the attitude of the leadership at Queen's Park, and I just want everyone in this room to know that my intention and my record has been that I work with the people for whom the decisions will have the greatest impact, and we will continue to do that in every way possible.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Our next question comes from Nick Stewart to Ms. Wynne.
Ms. Wynne, the Conference Board of Canada reported last year that the skills gap currently costs the Ontario economy $24 billion every year, and nowhere is this gap more pronounced than in Northern Ontario. In the Cochrane District alone, the mining sector is projected to need roughly 12,000 new hires between now and 2022. This is a common tale across all sectors of the North, and the need for decisive and immediate workforce development continues to be more pressing every year. What steps will your party take to ensure that Northern businesses and industries have access to a sufficiently skilled workforce?
It's a great question, Nick, and it's exactly the reason that making investments in education and training programs targeted in the way that you're identifying is very important. That means government working, and that means colleges and universities working in conjunction with industry and with labor to make sure that the kinds of programs that are put in place are the ones that are needed. So the youth job strategy that we developed that has already helped 11,000 young people to find opportunities and placements, that's the kind of program that needs to be in place. We announced in our plan yesterday, Experience Ontario, another opportunity for young people to work in an environment where they might not necessarily have thought that their career might be, but we can work with industry. If government works with industry to provide those opportunities, then that kind of possibility will come to kids. So we have already begun on that process, and that's why it's extremely important that right now we not step back from those programs. So quite frankly, when Tim Hudak and Andrea Horwath talk about cutting waste, I understand that there are people angry about the gas plant relocation, and I have apologized for that. But the fact is that we absolutely must make investments in the future of this province, and the most important resource that we have is our young people.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Response from Ms. Horwath.
Thanks very much. You raise a really important issue, and I hear it across chambers of commerce, frankly, across the province have talked to me about this very issue. There's a sense of disconnect that they're feeling occurs with post-secondary education and the workforce. Our MPP, Peggy Sattler, who is a school board trustee from the London area, actually brought forward a private members bill that creates a connectivity between young people leaving school and the private sector, as well as some facilitation from government, and it's basically creates pathways to experiential learning and workforce, and that's something that really it comes from chambers that have told us that they're concerned about it, and the education system, the people in the education system have actually acknowledged that there's some work that needs to be done there. So I look forward to trying to make that work, but I also know that there's great opportunity that needs to be realized with mining and development, quite frankly, and we need to make sure that we are providing training and skills, particularly for First Nations people, to make sure that they can take advantage of the economic opportunity that comes with mining in the mining industry. We believe that the best way to do that is working with municipalities, working with the education system, working with chambers of commerce, and working with young people, frankly, to encourage them to take up these kinds of occupations.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Our next questioner will be Deputy Grand Chief Les Ludit to Ms. Horwath.
Ms. Horwath, If you are elected Premier of Ontario, will your government expand the Ring of Fire discussions and consultations to include neighboring impacted Nan First Nations to the west and east of the Ring of Fire, such as those within the Mushkegowuk Council on James Bay, who wish to derive their fair share of all of the economic benefits from this massive $60 billion development?
Well, thanks, Deputy Grand Chief, and I'm glad you described the development the way that you did as one that can provide great opportunity for great numbers of people. You know, it's interesting what we see across the world in terms of the concern when they look at Ontario and the lack of a primary role that government has taken in ensuring that those discussions and those dialogues take place, which is why, frankly, New Democrats didn't support the Far North Act, because we know First Nations were not supporting the Far North Act because the government-to-government relationship, their duty to consult, all of those pieces weren't taken care of in that bill. That's why Chambers of Commerce, in fact, in the North backed up your position. That's why municipalities, frankly, backed up that position. There should be a direct upfront role that the provincial government takes in ensuring that not only the Ring of Fire, but all mining opportunities are opened up to proper consultation, proper discussion, proper revenue sharing, frankly, as well as training and opportunities for First Nations communities. And with the size of that development, particularly, or at least the opportunity that deposit provides, absolutely, it will be widespread discussion and consultation in a very respectful government-to-government way with First Nations communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Response now from Ms. Lynn.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Deputy Grand Chief. You know, the Ring of Fire development is so massive. It's a $60 billion opportunity that the entire North, and as I have said, the entire province and I believe the country can benefit from this economic development, but it has to be done right. And so when I was in Attawapiskat, the concern that I heard from the Attawapiskat First Nation was about the water supply, making sure that all of the protections that need to be in place in terms of the watershed, that we pay attention to those and that we work with all of the First Nations who are going to be affected and who can benefit. So the agreement that is in place with the 9 Matawa First Nations, that's part of the process, but there's a much broader process, and you know that has to do with making sure that all communities are part of the discussion, that you know that as we look project by project, and there's going to be lots of spin-off from the Ring of Fire, and the whole notion of resource revenue sharing and making sure that the communities that are the most affected are the communities that are able to benefit, so that there's training for young people, so that there are the health and social supports that are necessary so that communities can take part. All of that is part of what I think has to be the relationship as we move forward on the Ring of Fire.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. We have time for one more question, and for that I'll go to Kenora Mayor David Canfield for Ms. Wynne.
Thank you. The next question. Social supports. Northerners with limited means have great difficulty making ends meet, finding and keeping affordable housing, and staying healthy. While their needs are no different than elsewhere in Ontario, the solutions here are much more difficult and more expensive to achieve. What steps will your government take to ensure that Northern citizens have the same supports they need at a level that is commensurate with the cost of living that we endure?
Thank you, Mayor Canfield. Thank you for your question. I think that goes back to my comment about how important it is that the provincial government work hand in hand with municipalities on all of these issues. So whether it is the uploading that we have undertaken, so $1.5 billion a year that the provincial government has uploaded, costs that were downloaded by the previous Conservative government, we are uploading those social costs. Whether it's the changes to the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund and making sure that that $500 million, because ultimately it will be $500 million, that northern and rural communities benefit the most from that. And that we make sure that as we discuss policing costs, that we make the fairest decisions around mitigation of those. But all of that only works if we are in ongoing discussion and we make sure that we understand the issues from your perspective and what you are coping with. And that is core to our plan, making sure that we make the investments across the north that are going to allow these all of your communities to thrive, and at the same time that our relationship, the relationship between the provincial government and municipalities, is a strong enough one that as there are challenges, we can confront them together. That's our plan.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Response from Ms. Horwath.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you raised this issue because it speaks not only to the concerns around social housing, affordable housing, but social services altogether and health services, frankly. Northerners experience a lesser, I believe, a lesser amount of opportunity when it comes to access to these services. I've spoken to a number of district social services boards who tell me that they are not getting through to the Liberal government the very issues around the cost of delivering services. So, for example, in Southern Ontario, you can provide services like home care very, very easily because they're compact, dense communities. In the north, the home care worker might have to travel an hour and a half between clients to be able to provide this service, which is why home care wait lists are very long in the north. We tried to get the Liberals to deal with the wait lists in long-term care and in home care particularly, because we knew those wait lists were right here in Northern Ontario. We know that the building season is shorter. We know that the cost of electricity is higher because the seasons are colder and longer because the lights are on a bit more. So we have to build all of these realities in, not only to investments around social housing, but also to the other kinds of social services that we provide, because we have to recognize that it's different in the north and the solutions have to be different for Northerners if your needs are going to be met.
Thank you, Ms. Horwath. Well, that concludes, almost concludes the debate. It concludes the question portion of the forum. We'll now proceed to closing statements, and again, before the debate started, the order of statements was drawn by both parties. Ms. Wynne, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today and for taking part in this process on a beautiful afternoon. It's very important to me that people understand that the plan that we are putting forward is for the whole province, and it is different in the north, and the solutions for the north have to be different. But we also share a common goal in this province to make sure that every child and every senior and every family has an opportunity to take part in the economy and to have the highest quality of life. When I came into this office, I said that I would be Premier for the whole province, and I have honored that commitment. I have traveled to every corner of Ontario, and I have met with Ontarians in every single community that I have traveled to. In the north, I've been to places like Fort Severn and Kenora and Sault Ste. Marie. I've been to Sudbury and Moosonee and Attawapskat and Fort Francis and Timmins and New Liskeard and so many others. And I've seen what people are dealing with. In my first year of in this job as Premier, I said that I would have a cabinet meeting in Northern Ontario, and we did that. And I will do that again because I think it's very important for all of my cabinet colleagues to hear from people in the north about the issues that concern them. I'm also committed to keeping a Ministry of Natural Resources, a Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, and a standalone Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs. Yesterday I announced my commitment to setting up the Development Corporation. It is so important that I will not consider my premiership successful if I'm privileged to be re-elected unless we've been able to deliver on significant progress in the Ring of Fire. And most importantly, if I am re-elected, if we are re-elected, I want the North to be well represented in our government. Si nous sommes réélus, je veux que le Nord de l'Ontario soit bien représenté au sein de mon gouvernement. In uncertain times, our plan for jobs and growth and for building Ontario up is the right plan for Ontario. It's the right plan for Northern Ontario. So let's get at it. Thank you very much. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Ms. Wynne. Closing statement from Ms. Horwath.
I want to start by thanking you for the great questions. I believe Ontario is a great province, and I believe it can be stronger when all regions are thriving, including the North. I believe it's clear that the Liberals don't deserve to be re-elected. Your tax dollars, the ones that you send to Queen's Park, should be invested in better jobs, healthcare, infrastructure, and instead they've been wasted on partisan advertising, CEO bonuses, billions wasted on corruption, incompetence, Orange Air Ambulance, e-health, the gas plant scandals. Northerners are hardworking, honest people, and they deserve a hardworking, honest government. You need a premier who listens to you. You need a premier who respects you and who will deliver for you. The first step is to clean up the corruption. In this election, you have a choice. You can say no to the nonsensical Tim Hudak message. You can say no to a corrupt Liberal Party that does not respect your priorities or your tax dollars. And you can say yes to New Democrats who will respect your priorities, who will make sure your families have opportunity, who will stand up for what's right. For New Democrats, it is game on. It's time for a premier for all of Ontario. My Ontario includes the North. The NDP plan is a plan for you because it was built with you. It represents your priorities. I have listened to you. I have heard you. I respect you. And if I am privileged to become the premier of this province, I will work hard every single day to deliver results for you. On June 12th, vote to clean up Queen's Park. On June 12th, vote for a plan that makes sense. On June 12th, vote NDP.
Thank you very much, Ms. Horwath. That concludes our Northern Leaders debate, hosted by, I'm just going to repeat again, the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, the Northwestern Ontario Associated Chambers of Commerce, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Northeastern Ontario Chambers of Commerce, and the Anishinaabe Nation. I just want to ask our esteemed panelists, some of who drove a long way to be here today that had some very thoughtful questions, if they just stand up and we'll give them a round of applause as well. A big thanks to our sponsor, the Northern Policy Institute, and the supporters, netnewsledger.com and the Valhalla Inn. And almost finally, as one who's thrown his hat into the political ring once, I can only imagine what these two are going to be doing for the next 3 weeks. You know what, I don't even want to imagine. They probably don't even know where they're going to be tomorrow. I want to thank Kathleen, Wynne, Andrea Horwath for coming today. Thank you very much. Almost finally, big applause for event organizers Kristen Oliver of NOMA and Charlotte Robinson of NOAC. Thank you ever so much. And before we go, just don't forget on the 12th, your family, your friends, your neighbors, vote. I mean, we're under 50% in this province. I mean, that is not very good, and we've got to do much better than that. So get out and kick some butt before the 12th and get some people to vote. Thank you very much.
Deputy Grand Chief Les Luted. I'm
yes,
Nick.
yeah.
I work in the communications department. I understand that you wanted to speak with him possibly.
Yes.
You did want to? Okay.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
He just ran to the restroom real
Okay,
quick.
no, we got a few minutes. I'll be here. I'll wait whenever
Right
he's
here?
ready.
Okay,
We'll
we'll bring him right here.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick.
Right, thank you.
You pronounce my last name Spacek.
Spacek?
Spacek.
Spacek.
Okay. Close enough.
Say that again?
Spacek.
Spacek.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Frank Polia, the Valhalla Inn. Just completed the leaders debate, and with us we have Alan Spacek, is the mayor of the town of Kapuskasing, and also the president of the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities. It's quite a perspective that I want to ask you of in terms of the impact on the northern communities that you heard of today in terms of the debate. What's your impression of the leaders' information that was presented in the debate today?
Well, Frank, I appreciated the forum. I think there were some scripted answers. There's some questions that they definitely anticipated, but I think there was some that they drew from their personal opinion or that of their party, which was really important to us because we were really interested in what is the position of the leader of each party and their platform for Northern Ontario.
Anything specific that would have implications for Northern Ontario communities? I mean, you asked some of the questions specific to us. Anything that stood out that may have major implications?
Well, I think it's important that they recognize that it's done differently in Northern Ontario, and that's one of the single biggest factors. Too often they're implementing policy or legislation where they want one approach for the whole province, and I think the admission today that that doesn't work is significant. And at the same time, I think we recognize, and they stated that the future of Ontario is in Northern Ontario.
Excellent, and I guess you're referring to the Ring of Fire and $60+ billion of potential development. I know that some of the questions touched on that, and they touched on the high electricity rates being a hindrance to economic development. Why would people want to invest here when they have to pay very high rates? Why would they go to Manitoba or Quebec? And the Ring of Fire, the opportunity to create over 5,000 jobs. I think there was a lot of good questions. Cost of policing, heavy burden on municipalities. I'm sure with Northern Ontario municipalities, they all bring that up to you as their rep and their voice. So do you think government is listening?
Well, I think so. And in those questions that you just spoke to, there's really two common themes. One was facilitating us as Northerners so that we can deliver on the economy. We have the resources, we have the skills, we just need the opportunity to deliver on that. And secondly, the challenges that municipalities face in delivering services. Back to that point earlier of it's done differently in Northern Ontario, and they need to recognize that.
That's right. The curtailing growth in Southern Ontario, it's not the same as helping us grow in Northern Ontario. So you're right. We need to adapt the policies to Northern realities. So thanks for your perspective. Anything else you'd like to add? Anything that I may have missed in terms of what our readers, our listeners need to know in terms of this election at this particular point in time, which is very important for the future of Northern Ontario? We're not trying to be partisan here, one party or the other. We're looking at representing our Northern Ontario municipalities and what's good for us in Northern Ontario.
Well, and I think to that end, I can assure your viewers that between NOMA, the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, and FNUM, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, whichever party is successful, whoever is the next premier, we will certainly hold them to their word.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and have a good trip back home.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Okay, Frank. Who's
next? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Hello, I'm Frank Polia again here. The leaders debate is speaking with Deputy Grand Chief Les Luted from Anishinaabe Nation. Grand Chief, you asked some really important questions in terms of connecting remote communities to the electricity grid and other very important question to your communities. Your thoughts on the leaders debate and your thoughts on their answers?
Well, I think it was a very good leaders debate. For me, it's the first opportunity I've had, and I'm thankful that I had the opportunity. Thanks to Al Spacek, who got me on the panel, and Yeah, I think their answers were as best as they could, considering that, there's election coming up, and of course we won't know really until election day what the outcome will be. But I'm very happy, and I'm glad I came here.
And I think it was important for the leaders to hear the perspective for northern leaders like yourself, regardless who ends up, being in the next government. We have a northern reality. We have our own needs that need to be addressed. So you raised a lot of good points. Besides, connecting the remote communities, what other issues, especially the Ring of Fire and framework agreement, the revenue sharing agreement, or Aboriginal youth entering the workforce and being part of this new economic progress and evolution that we're witnessing?
Yeah, well, I've always been trying to promote the fact that this is not simply a local or regional development opportunity. It's provincial wide, even national, as the leaders stated. But for land First Nations, I want to make sure that the discussions and the consultations include as many of them as they can, because we're not all fortunate as First Nation communities to have a mine next door to us. So whatever impacts a major development like this $60 billion plus development is going to have, not only going to have the impacts on the immediate communities, but it's going to have impacts downriver on the James Bay coast and then along the coast and who knows where. To the west, we have communities who've been asking, well, what about us, right? Even the smaller communities. We need to have that discussion. And I've had some discussions already with ADM Alison Pila on revenue resource sharing, which would encompass the Ring of Fire, so that our First Nations will derive more financial benefits and economic business opportunities.
Any other issues that are dear to your heart that you wish they would be covered? And if they haven't been covered today, what are the issues? We want our viewers to know what is important to the Aboriginal communities, not only in Nan, but across our northwestern Ontario, northern Ontario, because we are, after all, one community. And we need to be aware of all these issues that we need to deal with to make sure that we're going to prosper in the future.
Right. Well, the cost of living, obviously, and the cost of transportation, the consumer price index, these all impact our community, especially the ones in the far north that have to pay the extra transportation costs for all the goods and services. We've got health issues, the prescription drug issue that's impacting a lot of our First Nations and kind of impeding in a way the ability to govern and make good decisions. I'm not suggesting they don't, but it's another issue. Social services, education, the Education Act, we're in that discussion right now at the AFN level, but these are all social, economic impacts that we're continually being impacted on. So we hope that with these new opportunities, these developments, that we will gain a majority of benefits so that we can build our communities into healthy, resilient communities.
And we hope that our provincial leaders of any parties will be listening and working with you. I know you've been in the front lines of making some positive changes. And we thank you for your participation today and for informing our viewers.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
Sorry.
How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Yeah, good. Whenever you're ready.
Whenever you are.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Busy morning?
Yeah, I'm always busy, always doing okay. Hello, we're here at the Valhalla Inn. The leaders' debate just concluded, and with us we have Nathan Lawrence, the new president of the Northwestern Ontario Associated Chambers of Commerce. You asked some really good questions today because in a way you represent the business community, but it's more than that, right? If business does well, they hire people, and that creates employment. We pay the taxes. Your thoughts on today's debate?
I think the debate went well. We had an opportunity to address a lot of issues that are affecting Northwestern Ontario. You know, with any debate, with any election, there's always a lot of issues that come up. You can't always cover everything, but you know, looking at Northwestern Ontario and Northern Ontario as a whole, there's a lot of things that we're facing right now. A lot of those things are opportunities that we have in front of us that we can really take hold of as corporations, as businesses, as just community members and roll with. But it's really affected a lot by policy and what the new government's going to be doing. So,
anything specific that you heard that you liked? Anything specific that you didn't like?
Well, I think we really wanted to, from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, really wanted to drill down on that investment component from the Northwest for the Ring of Fire. What's going to happen with respect to that? And I think we got the start of some answers today. I don't think we heard a detailed plan about what we need to really make things run and flow. But it does sound like both parties have it, you know, in the back of their minds that it's a very important issue for Ontario as a whole. And that we really need to start having a serious conversation about infrastructure investment and spending up here to make sure that we're leveraging the potential that comes out of the Ring of Fire. And then we really have to look at the spin-off that comes out of that and the potential for employment opportunities. But when we look at employment opportunities, how are we training those potential employees? And looking at the policies that are in place right now that are preventing Ontario from establishing a very strong trade-skilled environment. And one of the things the chambers in Northwestern Ontario are really advocating for is looking at how we're allowing our ratios for apprenticeship training here in Ontario. It's very much out of line from other resource-based provinces in the country.
You're thinking of Alberta, BC, all the resource-based provinces that have dealt better with the apprenticeship so that you don't have to have, 3 journeymen for an apprentice. The ratio is more imbalanced so that it's easier for prospective employers to bring those people on board and create opportunities for young people, Aboriginal youth, or anyone that wants to move into trades, because that's what we're needing, skilled trades.
Absolutely.
And we lost quite a few of those during the recession in 2008. A lot of them went out to the oil sands. They're not coming back, so there's a shortage right now.
Absolutely. From a training perspective, we really need to make sure that our training guidelines allow us to replace some of the workforce that we need to replace, or bring on the new workforce that we need to bring on to meet the opportunities that await us here with the Ring of Fire and other opportunities that exist in Northwestern Ontario. But when you look at the ratios, when you have, when you're looking at having to have anywhere from 3 to 5 journeymen to train 1 apprentice, and you look at somewhere like Alberta where it's the complete opposite, one-on-one or 2-on-1, and it makes it challenging for us to develop a very strong workforce.
Is there any other issues dear to the Chamber of Commerce that you would like our viewers to know about?
And again, the deficit's a big issue with most of the chambers across the province. When you look at the deficit right now and the debt that the province is carrying, you can only sustain that for so long, and you need to be able to put a plan in place that's going to start to reverse that while making sure that you're still being able to offer the required services that Ontarians really value and need.
And I think it's $12.5 billion a year. So the province is borrowing like almost $1 billion a month. So regardless who goes in, they have a big job ahead of them to bring that into balance. Because as you were saying, as someone was asking the question, why would someone want to invest in Ontario when they are looking at future tax increases?
There are a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities that exist in our province right now, and the deficit's a big one. With a deficit of about $12.5 billion annually, that creates a lot of challenges for a government to be able to effectively offer services for the long haul, and it's something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your participation and your input. It's informing our public so that they can make better decisions either at this election or in the future.
Well, we always appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Nathan.
Take care.
Okay. David, how are you?
I should have got up here quicker. I wanted to get out of here.
No problem. Okay, you are on. Okay. Hello, Frank Polia here at the Valhalla Inn after the leaders' debate. And with us we have David Canfield, Kenora Mayor and President of Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association. You asked some really good questions today. Your perspective on the answers?
Well, you know, as I said earlier, the proof's in the pudding, and a lot of the answers were good, what we wanted to hear, of course, and you know, not a lot of content, but at the same time, you only got 90 seconds to answer. It's pretty hard to get all the content in you need. I did make some notes, and so I'll put both the leaders on notice right now. I've made some notes of some of their answers, and if they get elected, then we will be holding them to what they said. And I think they both realize, and I hope everybody realizes, that the future of Ontario is in Northern Ontario. There is no doubt about that at all. The sooner Southern Ontario wakes up and understands that, the better off all of Ontario will be. And I think that was stated here today, and the fact that the questions that come from everybody on energy and infrastructure and the things that we need, the social fabric of Northern Ontario, was you best be on board, and we need the answers. And if you want to you know, if you want to talk the talk with Northerners, then you better walk the walk first. And I heard that answer from both leaders that they do that.
It's good to know that they're starting to realize that the future of Ontario is in Northern Ontario. I'm thinking you were specifically referring to the mineral developments, and it's a little bit late in coming. There is a framework agreement now, but electricity rates seems to be an issue in terms of potential investment in our region. Do you see many barriers, and how can we overcome those barriers in making sure that that development does take place, which will also help Southern Ontario?
Well, part of it is, and it's not just mining, it's mining and forestry. In fact, forestry probably quicker than mining. I mean, the resurgence of the forest industry is here. It's here now, and you're going to see new mills take off, and there's still problems. You know, we work with this every day through NOMA and you know, through FNOM and the Chambers of Commerce, is the fact that people and companies are still having a lot of red tape to get through and hurdles to get over. We can't continue like that. I mean, we're riddled with red tape and bureaucracy in the province of Ontario in comparison to our neighbors, and you know, our two neighbors with cheap power in Quebec and Manitoba, and I'll correct Andrea on that. She said half the price. It's actually a third the price in Manitoba, and I mean, it's tremendous differences, and we need to you know, straighten the province out. I'm not sure what the answer is on the electricity side. I know that 4 agencies doesn't work. I'm not going to totally agree with Andrea that you should reduce this and come back into one. I know Manitoba is a good example, but there's a lot of waste, a lot of duplication within the electrical system in Ontario. I think when we talk about green power, we're going to start talking more about water power, because that is the greenest, cheapest power in this country, anywhere in the world as far as that goes. And I think we've got to concentrate more on common sense approaches to doing, you know, to working with the energy piece, and making sure, you know, as Nan, some of their questions around hooking up to them communities, there's a lot of water power up there. So I mean, when you think about it and sit down in perspective, put it all in perspective, there's a lot of opportunity to get that cheap water power to run, you know, some development, some opportunities in them areas. So I think if they continue to listen to us as they said they were today, that we can move forward positive and put Ontario back on the map as an economic engine. If they don't listen to us and don't recognize that Northern Ontario is the future of this province, it won't happen.
Well, it's good to know, and I'm sure our viewers will appreciate to know that NOMA is standing up to the interest of the northern communities and northern municipalities. And I hope our leaders, whoever they may be, informing the next provincial election, will be listening. And I take comfort in knowing that you're going to be there fighting for us in the trenches, representing our interest in the Northern Ontario. So thanks again, Mayor Canfield.
Well, thank you.
Did you, whoever...
You can interview Charles from the Northern Policy, yeah.
And you can talk about workforce development,
absolutely.
Right? Okay. Yep. Make sure he doesn't go away. I heard you. Charles, okay.
I'm just going to throw this down.
Yeah. A little closer. Hello, I'm Frank Polia. We are the Valhalla Inn, just ending the leaders' debate, and there was quite an interesting give and take, some really good questions from our panel. You've been here, you were listening. I know you're paying close attention on, especially the question about workforce development, because as the executive director of the North Superior Workforce Planning Board, Madge Richardson, thank you for joining us. What was your take on the answer?
They were very good questions. They were well posed, and the responses were good and well thought out. It was unfortunate, again, they were limited in the amount of time that they had for each question, and 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes isn't very, very long. But however, it was there were no specifics when they spoke about the investment in talent and skills. There were no no specifics. And I know that they have made some strides in coordinating the effort. But it's certainly my hope when they're looking at workforce issues to not to have more of a collaborative approach and have programs that are more generic. Again, because a lot of the programs are for specific groups of people, and there are a great number of people that aren't included in those specific groups, such as there are many people that want to join the workforce or rejoin the workforce that are no longer attached to employment insurance, so they can't access that funding. They may not be in a position to access second career. It may be a first career. The programs are very limited and restrictive in many cases, and there has to be more of a collaborative approach, looking at all of them and communicating interministerially. And they expect all of us not-for-profit groups to do that, collaborate together. I'd like to see them do that as well.
You put it in perspective. There was talk about 5,500 jobs in Northern Ontario in relation to the Ring of Fire and mining development. What you just said is unless we get our act together in collaboration in making sure that the workforce is developed so we have the right skills to make this development happen, it won't happen, right? Or if it happens, they'll bring people from outside. The mining companies, the workers are very mobile. We'll bring somebody from outside and we won't benefit locally. So, but I know there has been progress, and I know you worked hard in ensuring that progress is realized. What's missing? What's still to do? What's important to know for our viewers?
There are still a number of different groups of people. Again, what I'd like to see is a collaborative approach, looking at the workforce in general and how can we take everyone who is within those groups in the workforce, whoever comprises the workforce, to look at some sort of a stepping stone approach to allow them to take advantage of opportunities in their region when they're presented. And it's going to take time, and it's going to take a coordinated effort, and unfortunately I haven't seen a great deal of promise in that area, but I'm still hopeful.
So more collaboration, more integration, more an effort. I'm fairly sure awareness is there. People are aware of the issue about workforce development. So I hope our viewers, it's good for them to know, so that, I know that all the different community partners in our region have been talking with the leaders and whoever will be forming the next government. I know that workforce development is now dear to them. The issue was discussed today to make sure that the opportunities in our region are realized.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just a couple of other thoughts, if you don't mind, Frank, but one of the ones when they're talking about different groups within that workforce, youth absolutely are so important. They are our future, absolutely, but there are a number of adults that are struggling to get back into the workforce.
Can't forget the adults.
That's right. We're still here for some time, and now they may not be retiring at 65. Some of them may stick around. So all of those people have to be included, as well as the ones who are no longer counted in any of the statistics. The ones that are no longer attached to employment insurance, or they're not covered by one of the ministries, such as social services under Ontario Works programs. All of those people accessing programs and services, they're still waiting for some sort of an opportunity to help them access the opportunities as they come up. And one of the other initiatives that's very close and important and dear to the heart of the North Superior Workforce Planning Board is apprenticeships. Yes. Did not hear a great deal about that specifically, but again, it was all general comments about investing in the workforce and the talent and the skills, and that's absolutely very important. However, I'd like to see more specifics about the programs that's going to enable that and promote those work opportunities.
I hope our leaders today were listening to the questions and the needs and desires and aspirations of people in the North. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you. Next. Thanks, Frank.
Charles was the last one. Charles, you're next. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So what do you need?
Just a couple of minutes of your time.
Sure.
Certwell?
Certwell. Think of the candies and the well you get water out of, and you're all set.
Certwell.
There you go.
Okay.
Where do you want to stand?
Right here. Whenever you're ready.
I'm going to take this off.
Sure. Okay, you have that one, yeah. Oh, hi. We are here now with Charles Certwell. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that right. But President and CEO of Northern Policy Institute.
That's right.
I think you were asking some questions to our leaders today and there were some pointed questions. I know that the Policy Institute is a great organization that can influence the outcome and influence decision-making that will impact the North. So you have a very important role to play. What was your view of their answers to your questions? And what were the key points that you were making?
Well, I think we have to specify that none of these questions were mine. None of the questions came from the Institute itself. So we were a sponsor of the event, encouraging debate, wanted to see these kind of questions answered, asked and answered. I thought the questions were very northern focused. I thought the issue around MPAC is particularly one that matters to a lot of municipalities. You know, I was in a couple of small municipalities just a week ago. Half their budget is gone when MPAC decided to redesign the way it calculates what a mill is worth. That's a big issue. Some of the things that I was disappointed about was that the larger provincial issues that matter to us weren't discussed. Healthcare didn't even come up at all. End-of-life care, long-term care, home care was briefly mentioned. That was concerning to me that it doesn't seem that that's the types of issues that the leaders of our province want to engage in when they're up here.
Well, you know, in any debate, there's only so much time. They're trying to focus and reaching out to their constituency and presenting their plans. So, like, I think one of the leaders said this is not only for the Northern Ontario, it's for all of Ontario, but Northern Ontario has unique needs. And you have written a guest column in the local paper about that.
Yeah, exactly. The message I was saying in the column is absolutely they should be coming into our communities and debating the issues, but not just the ones that are relevant or specific to that community. Absolutely, you have a couple questions that are very targeted, but they need to be talking about the bigger issues too. They need to talk to us about healthcare. They need to talk to us about trade. They need to talk to us about taxation. They talked a tiny little bit about deficit and debt, really with kind of banal kind of promises, and that was pretty much it.
So in your mind, what is the most pressing, there are so many, one of the most pressing issues in Northern Ontario that our viewers need to know, because there are implications in who's going to form the government, how they're prepared to deal in moving our future forward in a positive, progressive way.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of the views you had on display today, there's very little difference between the two of them. Their perspective is very similar. What they would do is very similar. The level of spending is very similar. But in terms of the issues for us, I think the number one issue is sustainability of our communities. That means immigration. That means support for families. That means convincing people to move back here who have gone west or who have gone south, and creating jobs and sustainable jobs for them. We can't just open a mill, keep it open for 3 years. We have to figure out a way to get the mills open, to get the mines open, to build the infrastructure that allows us to get our product to the world.
You raise some really good points, long-term sustainability, because we know in the North we have been subject to the cyclical economic cycles of the primary and secondary industries. Many small towns in our region have almost disappeared when the major employer went out of business. So there is a very good point for them, not so much for Thunder Bay that has been able to diversify its economy sufficiently to make it through the recession, but it's still affecting us, because I believe, and you know that whatever affects the North, whatever affects Northwestern Ontario small municipalities also impacts us here in Thunder Bay and vice versa. So I really appreciate your points, your insight, and good luck, and I look forward to hearing more from the Northern Policy Institute.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So let me pronounce that right again. Certwell?
You know little candies? Certs?
Yeah, certs.
Certwell.
Certwell.
There you go.
Certwell. Okay, I'll get that.
It'll be
Charles. Okay. And we'll get together soon. Yeah.